Hi, I'm Nan Simonson. I'm a whole food, plant-based life and or lifestyle medical. I work as a coach at a lifestyle medical practice, so lifestyle medical and lifestyle coach. And I practice what I preach. In other words, for 5 years, I've been whole food, plant-based, and at 72, healthier than ever. I'm about to show you an almost instant soup. At least for me today, it's almost instant. It's 20 minutes to 5 o'clock. We eat early. My husband will be home at about 5:30. And I like to have things ready so that we can eat early, finish by 6:30, and do what I call intermittent fast or time-restricted eating, in that we don't eat again anything until we have breakfast the next day. For me, that's about 14 hours. For him, it's about 13. So all of this to say, I want dinner and I want it now, and now it's almost 4:45. So what am I gonna do? This is so cool, people. This is the value of batch cooking. This is the value of using your freezer, and this is the value of having some resources on hand, some nifty recipes. I have kombucha squash. Now you see there's even green things in there. I don't remember what I had done with this. It's been in the freezer for almost a year in just a square sealed plastic container, like a Tupperware container. And it was roasted. It said on there, roasted kombucha squash, and it gave me the date, or gave me the date, October of 22. This is October almost of 23. It's been a year. And I thought, man, use this stuff. So I looked for a recipe, a good recipe that I could do easily. And I'm gonna show you what I've picked up, because I'm really excited about it. I was about to put this in the pan. That would have been wrong, because if I'm not making kombucha, roasting it, steaming it, cutting it up now, this is almost instant, and I'll show you why. I'm putting this already cooked squash. The recipe called for 3 cups. This was about 3.5 cups fortuitously in my freezer. I've had some, it tastes delicious. If you have something well sealed in the freezer, most things, especially if they have some moisture, and the squash has lots of it, they do really well with that. This almost looks like it has raisins in it. I wonder if it's just the seeds from the squash, because if I roasted it with raisins, that's fine too. What this is called is roasted kombucha squash, but as the author of this recipe, this comes from drivemehungry.com, and what the author says is that this roasted kombucha squash, also known as vegan Japanese pumpkin soup, because kombucha squash apparently is called Japanese pumpkin. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Is, again, almost instant, because once it's been cooked, this is all I have to do. I have some garlic, and it happens to be roasted. I bought 1.5 pounds of garlic peeled and ready to go from Costco. I thought, what am I going to do with it? Used a recipe from Tammy of Nutmeg Notebook. AJ does one similarly in the air fryer, and roasted it. So I had this big bag of frozen, first frozen separately and then put in the bag. They still stick together. Let me show you. You can see it's kind of cut up and roasted pumpkin soup. I'm sorry. Oh, here it is. Okay. So I'm putting in, garlic. I'm also putting in seasonings, and I could use any one of these seasonings or a combination of them. Ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg, brown sugar or maple syrup. I prefer date paste. That's whole food. It's dates soaked, ground up, and I put them in a freezer container. If you haven't seen these are really handy. They're called Super Cubes, Souper cubes. And I bought several sizes on Amazon. They're silicone, and silicone's very safe with food. You can even bake in it. Well, this happens to be the half cup size. So I soaked and ground up 2 pounds of dates. I put them in that half cup sizes, take them out, wrap each little half cup, because you have to kind of force them out and get it out with a spatula, but they're malleable and not too soft if done well the way I did it. I use I believe I used Tammy of Nutmeg Notebooks. I may have used Chef AJ's recipe for making date paste. Anyway, I have a number of those wrapped in just a little bit of parchment paper and then stacked up in quart size Ziploc freeze bags. And I just pull them out, keep them in a jar. I always have date paste around, and it's inexpensive that way. So I use date paste rather than maple syrup. And then miso paste. Are you familiar with miso? It's a salt substitute. It's a fermented soy product. See, mine's almost gone. It will last in my refrigerator forever. It's not inexpensive. This one happens to be an organic chickpea miso by Miso Master Organic. You can get a soy miso, light, white, yellow, red, and they get stronger flavored as you go up the line. This, though, adds umami to this recipe. And remember, this is Japanese pumpkin. So this soup, and I went ahead and used the fresh grated ginger, some cinnamon, some nutmeg, the sweetener as well. And all of that went into here with the date paste and the miso. All of that goes in. This is why I'm calling this almost instant. So I have put together my soup. I'm warming up my pan because within 15 minutes, it's going to be a warm soup. Actually, it'll probably be a warm soup within 5 to 8 minutes. I'll serve it up. What are we having for dinner? Is that enough? Well, this is what I keep on my stove all the time. It's a Le Creuset. I believe it's 6 or 7 quart casserole. And in there, I always keep, let me show you, it's wet because the water is a little high. I always keep one of these little foldable steamer baskets, and I have artichokes. So we're going to have for dinner these lovely steamed artichokes. I happen to have put in the last batch of artichokes some cobs of corn broken in half, and it fit in there. Steamed the artichokes. They steam for 30 minutes. Ooh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start them. Because, well, no, I'll start them at 5. They steam for about 30 minutes to be really tender, and so I put the corn in the last 10 minutes. And so, and we didn't eat it. We had too much to eat that meal, so I had leftover corn. It'll be warmed up on the cob. It'll be great. So corn on the cob, and and I'm gonna smear the cobs with the teeniest bit of miso and tamari. Won't that be good? Very Asian, well, somewhat Asian. This is going to be Asian flavored, especially with the ginger in there and the miso. So stop talking, man. Couple of cups and a half of veg broth. I make my own veg broth by putting scraps in a 1-gallon Ziploc container in the freezer. I just keep putting them in, and when it's full, I use a larger pan than this, an 8-quart stock pot, and I make my own broth. That was my own broth. And then to cream it up, we're using unsweetened coconut milk, and this is organic and it's light. There's a big difference between the light and the full fat coconut milk. This is 70 calories. I don't count calories, so I'm not saying it for that reason. I eat whatever I want that is whole food, plant-based. And if you know anything about caloric density, You may want to look that up or just Google caloric density, Chef AJ, and she'll have a video about that. As long as I am left of the red line, that means grains, legumes, tubers, meaning potatoes as much as I want, all kinds of vegetables, greens, and fruit. I can eat pretty much as I want because all of those are 600 or fewer calories per pound. How many pounds can we eat? Always staying satisfied. I do add a little bit of other foods, but not a lot. And that's where it comes in that I care about the calories, and the calories indicate the amount of fat because coconut is almost all fat. Coconut milk is almost all fat. Negligible, if I can get it out, fiber, negligible, negligible protein, 1 gram of carbohydrate. What's the rest? What's left? Fat. However, the light is 70 calories. The full fat is 140, double the amount of coconut fat. And so I will take a lighter flavor, and be careful here because coconut, imagine milk coming out of a cow. No, don't imagine that. No, don't do that. I haven't had milk or dairy in years. But the reason I even brought that up, we all learned this in kindergarten. We got some milk, some whole milk. The fat rose to the top and we skimmed it off and made butter. That's how we learned where butter came from. Well, in here, the fat raises to the top, and on a cool day, it congeals because that's what a saturated fat does. And coconut is a saturated fat. Sorry. But I still have it, little bits of it, because when this is all said and done, by the time we eat it, we'll each get maybe a third of a cup of coconut. This will serve 6 people. Okay, let me just get it done and get it on the stove. This is a Vitamix blender. Love the Vitamix because nothing gets it down. You can blend raw cashews without soaking them and make a cream out of it. A lot of blenders and certainly food processors won't do that. You have to soak them overnight, which isn't so bad. But if you put some money aside for something special, this becomes something that allows you to do things that a lot of appliances wouldn't do. So, sorry for the sound. Ripping it on the floor. This is my soup. I'm going to adjust seasonings. I'm going to say that with every recipe. Don't blame the recipe creator, the cook, the designer of that recipe. If you don't like the flavors, at least most of the time, taste it and then adjust the seasonings because all of us taste differently. I taste very differently than somebody who eats a standard American diet and is used to food that is heavily salted, heavily fried, heavily oiled. I don't add oil, and so this is an oil-free recipe. Doesn't mean fat-free because of the coconut milk. But, and so I taste differently. My palate has become much more used to natural flavors. Not completely, because I will add some salt. Ooh! See, by heating that, I got it primed to get hot right away. And that's it. This is the recipe. The work came with the kombucha. And I'll, in this recipe, repeat the direction that the author gave, and of course I'll give credit and even give their their website. You can find this recipe and direction or some specifics about it. But these flavors, and I will taste it when it's hot, and I will add, for sure I'll add pepper. We'll see if I'm gonna add salt. I'm going to plate it, and when I plate it, I'll put a little drizzle of coconut oil on it. Sorry, I didn't mean that. Coconut milk. The coconut milk gives it such a lovely creaminess, even though we're not using the full fat version. Okay, I'm not gonna double dip because I'll clean this spoon, but I'm gonna taste it. I'm gonna put a little bit of salt in it, but that is lovely. So what I was saying is when I plate it, I'll show you it with a swirl, and I'm going to garnish it with fresh cilantro. It could be cilantro or parsley. This is how I keep it. I buy it fresh from a farm store every week. Chop off a little at the bottom so that it will uptake water more easily and keep this bouquet in the freezer just like that. So I'm going to cover it, let it heat gently. I'm going to go ahead and start my, there we go, my artichokes, corn on the cob artichokes, this lovely soup. And then I'm going to prepare in my air fryer some baked crisped cubes of tofu. So I've got this entire meal covered with a great protein source, a good carbohydrate source, phytonutrients, phytochemicals. And when people say, oh, but I've got to have my meat, I think to myself, there are so few options in terms of what we have with meat flavor-wise. And I think of what we can do with plants and cooking at home and loving the knowledge, basking in the knowledge that you know exactly what's in here. Because processed food not being real is not anything you could really imagine. Most of us wouldn't have any of those, a lot of those ingredients in our kitchens. That's all I have to say. I am the author of Aging Powerfully. I wrote this book nearly 3 years ago in December of 2020, and a few months from now it will be December of 2023. And I wrote it when I was about to turn 70, and at first thought, oh no, I'm old and getting older by the day. And I thought, that's ridiculous. We can get younger by the day based on attitude and determination and what I call purpose. Well, what we all call purpose. I decided that I was going to take this message, whole food, plant-based, and lifestyle as medicine, what I teach in this book and what I've learned from the College of Lifestyle Medicine and the practice at which I work. I have talked long enough. Thank you for joining me. Watch for the photo. I'm looking for my little off button. Give me a thumbs up. We get a lot of attention when we are at least hitting the mark and people are liking what they see. And so if you like it, let them know. Them, who are they? Them, the algorithm people. Have a great day. I know I'm going to. Bye.